Seth and Melanie, hey, it's so good to see you guys. Thanks for joining me today.
What's up, Ryan?
It's awesome to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
I think this is our three-peat. Now or is this twice? I've been on your show once, maybe twice.
You've been on it twice.
Twice.
Okay. So I figured, fine, I'll return the favor and have you guys on my show, and we'll, actually, it's more than that, because the conversations you guys are having specifically around relationships and marriage are something that I think are so instrumental for guys. We do an Ask Me Anything for our podcast every week. And one of the questions that we got last week was, why is there so many relationship or marriage or women questions in our Facebook group? And it's a testament to the work that you're doing with regards to how challenging relationships can be, but also how important they are to men. So I'm really glad you guys are here.
Yeah, right on, man. Thank you so much. It's like we went back and forth. We finally made this happen. And so super excited, super stoked to be on today.
This is like my favorite thing to talk about too. So I'm pumped for this conversation.
Well, I think what I like most about what you guys do is you don't come from this perfect, world and everything's always been bliss. I know a little bit about your story, but tell me a little bit about your guys' marriage, the highs, the lows, and then also how you got to this point where you are right now, coaching and consulting with other people on what they can do in their relationships.
Yeah. So first of all, we've been married it'll be 19 years next month, actually.
Awesome. Congrats.
And we have 3 kids, and I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist and have been in private practice for about 15 years. So in the marriage space, that's what I do as a profession, as a career. And of course that impacts our marriage. But we early on in our marriage, right after the birth of our second kid, we literally went through hell. Melanie, we had an argument and there was just a lot of stuff boiling over. There was some postpartum stuff, and she gave me a black eye. And for like anybody in a relationship, it's like you don't get with someone to be like, yeah, we'll probably duke it out one day, and go from there. But it's like Mike Tyson, you always have a plan until you get punched in the face, and then like everything goes out the window. So I'm sitting there with a black eye and I'm like, what the F is going on? I'm a therapist, like we're in church, we're trying to do everything right. And then that just was our absolute rock bottom. And then we had to build from there. But it was about 2 years of pure hell that we hated each other, wanted to get a divorce. There was all kinds of stuff going on, but we stuck through it.
Yeah. And during that time, we were looking for resources. Because again, like Seth said, he had gotten his master's in marriage and family therapy. So he was a master's holding therapist when he had confessed that he had been lying to me and looking at pornography. Nothing crazy, like literally nothing crazy compared to what most people go through in their relationships. And I lost my mind. I punched him in the face. Like we had 2 years of absolute hell. And as we were looking for resources, the books that we kept finding, the podcasts we kept finding were like, number one, vanilla. They were so boring. They were never like real. It wasn't ever a real thing you were working through. It was like these theoretical couples who might have a problem. They were so boring. And it was almost like they were built on the foundation and the premise that you definitely really loved your partner. But I was like, oh no, I definitely really hate him. And I don't want to look at his face, but I want to make this work. Because I knew a few things. I knew I didn't want to break up my family. We had little kids. This happened when our second son was 2 weeks old. And I was like, well, I don't want to do this alone. Like my kids are in diapers. I don't know what to do. I didn't want to break up my family. And also he's my best friend. So like, I got to figure this out because I want to figure this out for this guy, but I like low key hate him. And so when we were going through all of this, trying to find resources, and against the guesses of all of our friends, we actually didn't get a divorce in that season. We totally thought we would. They all thought we would. And once we got out of the like hard part of it, we turned around and we went, okay, we got to do something to help other couples like us, because we know there are other couples like us. And that was the genesis of the podcast, and that turned into coaching and all the stuff that we do now. But it was full blown messy for a real long time.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I commend you, Melanie, for even in the midst of having that struggle and feeling that way of wanting to stick through it. One thing that I hear a lot from the guys is, I don't know if this is true or not. You guys can tell me, but anecdotally, and this might just be because I deal primarily with men, is that I would say I'd be willing to bet. Well, I know this is just a statistic that women initiate divorce more than men. And I'd be willing to bet that men seem like, generally speaking and broadly speaking, are more interested in situations like this, in keeping relationships together versus women. Is that accurate in your assessment? And my follow-up question to that is that if a woman's no longer interested, when do you pack up shop as a man, and when do you try to work together to make this marriage work, even though she may not be interested in it?
Yeah. So you answer that, and I have some straight up just what we actually did.
Right.
in
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. So yes, I agree. I think women are more likely to have like under the, what would the word be? Sort of like behind the scenes, been contemplating leaving for a long time. They'll have talked to other people about it. It'll be like this thing that's kind of hidden or whatever. And again, from what we've seen with clients, men are typically the ones who reach out to us. Men are the ones who want to coach with us. It's not their wives.
Now, in the therapy world, I have far more female clients who bring their husbands to like counseling and stuff like that. Like the coaching world is different from therapy world, because coaching is like, hey, okay, the touchy feely, whatever therapy stuff is fine, but we're in there, we're going to kick some ass and like call you on your stuff. So there's more men that reach out for coaching than women.
Yeah. And coaching is really different. We should.
I was going to say, well, it's probably different, but it's also probably a marketing thing too. Like when a man hears coaching, it's like coaching, grab life by the balls, getting stuff done. Like I'm assertive, I'm making it happen. Therapy's like, oh, I got to sit on this couch with this person and I'm really uncomfortable. And I have to talk about really uncomfortable things. And they're not high performance things. They're things that I'm personally struggling with that I would not like to air out in front of strangers. So I imagine there's the perception of what coaching is versus therapy as well.
Yeah. And it's real. That is the difference. Like one of the things that I tell my clients, and so therapy has its place. Think of it like physical therapy. If you break your ankle, you go to physical therapy so you can just walk. But if you want to win the race, you get a coach so you can win. You can stand on that platform and have that gold medal. So when we work with clients, one of the things that frustrates me to no end, and I love therapists, I'm married to one, is that they just want to talk to you about your problems. I don't want to talk to you about your problems. I want to hear what your problem is, and then I want to work towards a solution. And we're going to systematize this so that you can have success. So that's like the primary, for me, the difference between coaching and counseling is that I'm not just here to like gab about what's wrong and what you screw up every week. Let's make a system for the success moving forward.
So back to your question about the women initiating divorce, which that's a true statistic. When we were going through the 2 years of hell, I would literally get texts and Melanie would say, I am divorcing you. I want a divorce. And I would just simply, not like a douchebag, say, no, we're not doing that. We're not getting a divorce. Right. And of course, I just didn't leave it at that. It was, okay, we're not getting a divorce. We're going to go to therapy. We're going to read these books. We're going to talk to people. We're going to have a trusted friends around us. And then, so that was the time where I had to put up or shut up. Right. And the resistance, Stephen Pressfield talks about like the resistance. Whenever you're doing anything awesome, there's going to be resistance. And I'll tell you, the resistance from her, because she was coming from a place of hurt, was crazy. So it was like, whenever you get on a roller coaster, and that bar comes down, and what do? You grab it, you shake it, right? You're like, okay, this thing isn't going anywhere. So now I can trust it to go upside down at 100 miles an hour, right? But if you got on that roller coaster and the thing went up, you'd be like, I'm getting off. I'm not riding this thing. That's what Melanie was doing. And I think that's where a lot of coaching and especially therapy falls short. It doesn't call the men up to task. It's like your wife, if you guys have a terrible marriage and you screwed up, right? And your wife is going to push back and resist and stuff like that. Do not take that as, oh, she's just making life too hard. Now, of course, there's a fine line between that. But she had to push back on me to say, to satisfy the feminine urge and like, can I trust this guy? Can I follow him? Can I be with him? And she put me through hell for a long time. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm just kind of like taking all the shit that she's given me just because. It was like, okay, I understand it. I understood that process. It's like, yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. But like Melanie said, there is a fine line between, I mean, she didn't cheat or like, rack up tens of thousands of dollars of credit card stuff, nothing crazy like that. It was just like, we were arguing all the time. And that was her pushing back. Can I trust the dude? Can I trust this dude? Can I follow this dude? Can I trust him? Can I trust him? Can I trust him? And then finally she figured out, yeah, I can. And then that's when we started to heal. But I do want to say something.
Actually, before you get any further in that, here's how I've heard it is that, and Melanie, maybe you can speak more to this or correct me if I'm wrong, is that I've heard it framed as testing to ensure, like not necessarily, it's a test, right? And I don't even think it's a conscious I don't think women are like, I'm going to test him to see if he passes my test. Like, I don't think that's the case, but I think even maybe biologically, they're like, all right, is this a man who can stand on his own 2 feet? Is this a man who is going to carry through with what he says? Because maybe for 10 years up to this point, he actually hasn't. So I need to make sure this change is real or not. But my question with that is, how does a man know when it's testing? Because I think a woman who's in this position, and I experienced some of this, will say things that might be interpreted as testing, or it might be that, no, they're not actually testing. Like, this is how they feel and they're out. And how do you interpret where things are?
Right. I think you bring up a really great question. I think for in our scenario, I want to bring up 2 points. I was testing Seth for the sole purpose. This is going to sound terrible. You're exactly right. Like, evolutionary biology in me was going, if this piece of crap doesn't protect me when I'm at my worst, he's never going to protect me when I'm at my best. And I'm going to test him right now. Like, I'm actually going to test him by being mean to him, which is the wrong thing to do. Ladies,
on purpose. You would do that on purpose?
Yes. I would be like, let's see. And then part of that too, listen, I've grown a lot in the last several years. Part of it too was like, oh, and if we get a divorce, I can point at him. I can say it was his fault. I'm going to make him so mad at me that he's going to do the ugly thing and I will look like the victim. So here I was very bad about that, and it was unkind and it was wrong. And I was doing that. So, but hold on before I forget. So then the other side of that is, how do you know if the wife is testing you or she's just like straight up, I'm out? It's because when Seth started to change, I reciprocated. He started to make movement and growth. And I don't know if we've ever talked about what he did. So when we had this kind of like line in the sand moment, where Seth was like, we're not getting a divorce. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to pray every single day, 6 times a day for as long as it takes. And that was essentially Seth casting a vision, like, where I'm going to fix this, like him saying, I messed this up. I am going to fix it. And I'm going to prove to you. So every day he would call me 6 times a day. Sometimes I wouldn't even say hello. I would like cuss him out and hang up, but he would still do it. And so he proved to me that he was serious, that I didn't need to hold his hand, that he could do it without having like me mother him, or, what is the word? Like, complain. And what do they always say? Like, a wife is a nag him. Right. So he showed up, and then guess what I did? This is the proof that I was actually in it. I then showed up because he showed up. He led and I started to follow.
But why did you do that specifically with the prayer 6 times? And I don't care if it's prayer 6 times a day or just calling 6 times a day, because that could also be interpreted as obnoxious and needy and overbearing and trying to manipulate the situation or coerce you into believing a certain way. And I think a lot of men probably do that. I've done that. And I think that would be exhausting to a lot of women who are on the brink of wanting to move along in a relationship.
I think it was like in this case, it was like the first time he really saw me. Like, he shut down. He didn't coerce. He didn't try to, bargain or do whatever. He literally actually saw me, and he went, okay, I see where I've screwed up. I'm going to own that. Now I'm going to pave a path to do this different. Are you with me? And I would literally be like, F you, go in a hole and die. And he'd be like, okay, well, I'm still walking this path. And if you're with me, you don't leave. Right. And so it's a very fine line. I don't want any men to interpret this as like, you can just boss your wife into following you again, because it doesn't work that way.
No, it's not that weird coercion manipulation thing. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Guys, if you're doing that, cut that shit out, because it's not right. Right. No. But
I want to come back to that, because I don't think most men recognize they're doing it. I didn't.
Right. Right.
So like my ex-wife would say, oh, or whether she said it or not, I think she felt like it was me, a manipulation tactic to keep her around. And I didn't feel like it was. Looking back on it now, I can see. So I say what you wanted to say, but I also want to revisit the idea of, how do you know if you're manipulating or if you're truly on a better path? So go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that up.
No, that's a great point. So in therapy, we talk about differentiation, right? And the basic definition of differentiated person is like, oh, I am happy, I am content, I am whatever, with or without you, no matter what you do or don't do, right? So I come from hey, I try to be like top level dude in all kinds of stuff, no matter like, oh, you don't like that? Oh no, I can't do it now. Just sit and feel sorry for myself, right? So I was coming at it from a differentiated point of view. And the best analogy I can think of is, say that I'm an entrepreneur, which we are, and we have like the clearest clarity vision of what we want to build in the business, right? You say, here's my vision. I am, Jocko Willing, extreme ownership of everything. This is where we're going. This is what I want to do. Are you with me? Okay, Melanie. Well, yes. Okay, you're with me. Here's what I commit to every single day to get here. And I'm not going to be like, hey, you're not praying with me. What's wrong with you?
Right.
I'm so sad. Well, she didn't answer the phone, so I'm just going to screw it. I'm not
I'll be
praying.
mad at her now.
So an entrepreneur doesn't do that, right? Like with Order Man, you had a vision, you cast a vision, and you stick to that vision every single day. No matter if Joe Schmo over here is saying, hey, Ryan, Order Man sucks or this or that. You're like, whatever. You're still going to go forward with that, right? So I had to take that mindset in the marriage. It's like, we are not getting a divorce. And that wasn't, again, it's not like a douchebag manipulative kind of thing. Neither one of us in our heart of hearts did not want a divorce, right? We didn't come from divorced families. We're like, no, we don't want that. Now, divorce is fine in circumstances that I'm not saying that it's wrong. But for us, we both didn't want that. And I knew it. So it's like, okay, how can I take the most appropriate leadership role around this while seeing her not being manipulative, not being a douchebag, but sticking to my word, no matter what she brings, hell or high water, I'm going this way. And then that was a vision that she was like, oh, he's for real. I can follow that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes me think of like a leader in an army, like the person, like I don't know, what is the leader of an army that goes and plows like a new path and all the other people are like, this idiot's going to get us killed. And the leader's like, no, I have to do this. I know my mission. And then eventually the people in the back are like, oh, he's not going to get us killed. He does know what he's doing. Like it's a trust building practice, if that makes sense. Again, fine line, go to counseling, get coaching.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because you guys said, in your heart of hearts, you didn't want a divorce. I don't think anybody does, but I think there comes a point in time for both men and women where even though they don't want that, they feel like that's the only path forward.
Yep.
And I'm not sure exactly why that is. If you think about, and look, I'm looking at it through a pretty raw lens of my own personal life going through a divorce.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked offline about that. It's hard because I at some point you loved each other. Like at some point it worked out. Right. And then to see it so muddied and clouded, but then to know that it could be back on the right path if both of you are willing to work on it. But the hardest thing is when one party is and one party isn't. That's the most challenging thing. But I like what you're saying, though. This makes sense because regardless of the outcome, you're still on a better path.
And there was one point when Melanie, and this was probably about a year and a half, she was still, I mean, there was a lot of growth over a year and a half, but there was still this resistance pushing. And there was one point, and I remember it very clearly. I was kind of like pissed, not pissed, but I was like, hey, listen, we can't do this. I was like, if you continue to do this, I swear to God, I will divorce you. That is it. This will happen. And that was coming from, I mean, I was pissed. I was frustrated, but also looking at the landscape of like, okay, enough's enough. This is time to grow. We both call each other higher all the time, but that was like a calling up of like, hey, this ends, we've been going the wrong way down the freeway for a year and a half. We're stopping the car, we're turning it around and going this way. If not, we're going to be in separate cars, but I want you with me kind of thing. Right. And she responded to that. And that is when and here's the key to all of this. The point when we stopped looking at one another of like, you're this, you're that, you make me this, blah, 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 everything. When we stopped that and go and looked inside and said, oh, wait a minute, I'm the cause of these problems. And she said the same thing to herself. Then we looked at each other differently and go, oh, wait a minute. We're on the same team. And that was where like personal ownership, that's where like it really shifted for us. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one thing I want to really point out is that nobody talks about this stuff and teaches you how to do it. So like grace all over this, because nobody says, hey, when you marry someone from a different background or who's had, abuse in their life or who has had neglect in their life, you are taking not only two people's family of origin and trying to merge these two crazy different, families of origin, you're also taking two nervous systems and trying to merge them together. You're taking, like, I'm going to use us as an example. Seth is from South Carolina. He is a redneck. They frog gigged. His brother used to ride bulls, like redneck, right? I am from Seattle. When Seth met me, I had a shaved head. I have tattoos everywhere. I'm a Seattle person through and through. He is a redneck through and through. These are very different cultures. So number one, you're trying to merge a culture, right? Even if you're from the same town, this is you have a culture of your family, a culture of whatever. You're trying to merge that. And then on top of that, you're trying to merge like I responded really weirdly to his body being okay with his body because he grew up where it's hot. You swim. People are almost naked all the time. In Seattle, it's too cold to be in your bathing suit ever. So like even just those little things that hardly matter are sort of like a tiny peek into how complex it is to do relationship with someone else and then to have it last over time. So Ryan, it is a lot harder than people make it sound. And I don't want you to feel like, oh, if I had just done this, or anyone who puts that upon themselves is kind of forgetting what we are not taught, if that makes sense. And that's part of our mission and what we do. We don't think that divorce is bad. We don't say, oh, you need to stay married and that's the primary, whatever. That's not our goal. Health is our goal. Always, 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 if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I want to talk about maybe some of the pitfalls, because when you say things like, well, what you just said about like, oh, if I would have only done this, there's truth to that, right? There's for guys and gals who could have maybe done something different that would allow the marriage to go down a different path. I do want to get there. I also want to talk about something that maybe is obviously, I'm sure, a little bit more sensitive for you guys, is this episode when you hit Seth. So Seth, I wanted to ask you, like in that moment, and these aren't comfortable questions, but they're good to have. Like your sense of masculinity. Like, did you feel emasculated in that moment? And then, like, what is the path to forgiveness for that look like? Because I mean, there's infidelity issues that we hear about. You guys, it doesn't sound like infidelity, unless you would account the pornography, which some people define it differently. But it doesn't sound like there was a fidelity issue. But I know that there's a lot of men who listen to the podcast that have some forgiving to do and some grace to offer, even though they may not feel like they need to or want to. What was that path like for you?
That's a great question. Like the story, and I remember it very distinctly, because I came home from work one day and we'd, arguing over the phone, and I went outside and something happened. And then she tried to like kick me in the balls, right? And
well, you tried to hug him.
I tried to hug
you were like so we argued all the time. That's all we did was argue every day, all day. And he was coming home from work and he was like trying to be kind and hug me. And I just was like, don't hug me. And
then like she tried to kick me in the nuts. I blocked it and then wasn't even expecting, then just a literal mean right hook, just right in the eyeball, like the kind that makes your eye bleed, so like sport around with a big black eye and then have a thing. And like, first of all, it's shocking. I'm like, what the F did that just happen? And then I just remember like walking away, sitting on steps and just like not believing that actually happened. Right. And then, so I wasn't mad. I wasn't anything, just how did our marriage get to this point right here? Right. So you could say it was a low time. And then I wasn't like, how dare you hit me? Don't you respect? I didn't feel any of that. I felt, wait a minute, that is a lot of stuff that built up in her, stuff that she needs to work on and take accountability for. And also stuff that I probably put her through, right? Because we weren't in a good position. So forgiveness was easier, I would say, in that, because like I knew how hard I made it for her. And for forgiveness, it's like and then I guess we could get into different territory around forgiveness, but it's like it's kind of like Jordan Peterson says, like if you're holding on to something, like if you're holding on to conflict, like conflict avoided is conflict multiplied, right? So if you're holding on to something that you just like, you know what, we're trying to reconcile here, but have I truly forgiven that person? You're going to see them different. You're going to talk to them different. You're going to think about them differently. And in turn, that's going to make you feel different too, So it's almost like I need to clear this up. It's like I need to get all the fog off of my binoculars or something. Otherwise, I'm not going to see what I'm trying to see as clearly as I can, right? So for me, we talked about prayer. We're Christian, right? So it's like, yeah, we need to be called to forgive, right? Because we've been forgiven and stuff. But it was just like, okay, I can't hold on to that. And knowing what I know about psychology and therapy and all this stuff, I can't hold on to that while trying to build what I want to build at the same time. It's like I want to let go of this in order to get to this step to build that.
I want to comment on this too, because I think there was a moment that I wish more women could see in that interchange. And this was years of time. This wasn't just like a week. This was like over the span of probably 5 years, right? So in the initial burst, I punched him in the face. That wasn't my plan, by the way. That was an outpouring of me having zero awareness of my nervous system and self-control and no conflict resolution skills, because I did not see conflict in my home at all, ever, ever, right? So I never saw conflict, didn't know what that looked like, didn't know how to do it. And so I had to figure out what to do with the fact that I had punched my husband in the face, right? So I had to sort that out in my own mind, but I was too angry to know or care. And then sorry, put your hand down. You're making the thing thumbs up.
Oh,
Sorry, it's thumbs up because your thumb is sticking up. But so
Is it really? Like it sees it or something?
his hand was going like that, and it
I
was
saw it. I'm
reading
like, why is it doing that?
Yeah, it's because his thumb was up.
Interesting.
We have it set on a different setting. I should have changed it. But anyway, so that process, this is again where I wish more women could see this. And men, if you're listening and your wives don't listen to this show normally, share this with your wives just so they can hear this part. Because this was the reason, probably primarily, that I didn't leave. I wanted him to leave me. I wanted to make him look like the bad guy. But when he actually said, this was years after the event itself happened, when he broke down and said, I cannot believe you punched me in the face. I can't, like, that was so, it was such a, what are the words that you would use for that? He wasn't afraid of me physically. Like he's even said it. He's like, I wasn't like afraid of you. You can't really hurt me. But there was this like a breaking of something. What would it be? Trust? Would it be even just like kindness? Like the kindness factor of me just like literally punching you in the face.
Yeah.
And when you shared with me how much that hurt you, it changed how I saw Seth, because I had this idea in my mind that men are hard, men don't cry, they don't have feelings, they're a-holes, and they don't really care. That's what I learned growing up. Men are stoic, they're strong, that you can never make a man cry. That's what I knew in my own father. So the fact that one day he was like, I'm heartbroken that you did this. And now this is not Seth's nature, Seth's not like heartbroken at things, but he actually took the time to tell me, and it changed everything. And that was around the time when he was like, hey, if you don't change, I'm leaving you. Like, I cannot be treated like this. I deserve more than what you're giving me, wife. Right. And it was like the first time in my life that I had thought that Seth had feelings.
That's interesting. I like that you're also talking about the boundaries that he's not imposing necessarily, but the boundaries that he's erecting at that point. Because when you first said that, I also think there's a line. Like maybe a woman wants to see a different side of you, or to be, or to know how you truly feel, like the trust to be there. But also you can't, as a man, be a blabbering idiot all the time and, crying and complaining about everything that's wrong in your life. So I think the difference, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, is that you shared that, but you also with that shared, and this is why I'm erecting this boundary, which is appealing, because if you can't have something, you want it.
Right.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, I think this is where all of relationship advice have done disservice to men, is that it's primarily done by women. So women want men to talk and think like women. And then once they do, they don't like them.
That's what I was going to say. They want that until they get it, and then they don't like it.
Yes. And it took me years to understand that. And then now that's like one of my primary missions in all of the content we make, the resources that we make, the coaching that we do, is like, women are absolutely shooting themselves in the foot by like making it a requirement that men think like them. What bullshit. Sorry for my French, but that is so stupid. Men are half the equation. Let's not pretend that they're not. And let's not make it this weird, like, feminist manifesto that men ought to think like women and then they'll be good. No, then they'll be useless. They won't be a man or a woman. They'll be neither. And I don't want that.
And that's not attractive. That's not safe. That's not appealing to you as a woman, right?
But again, Seth had to show me, like, I have feelings and this is how I show them. I don't show them like you show them. So I get passionate about it.
I can tell. It's good though. This is what we need. So Seth, in that moment, it sounds like that was years later when you finally talked about how that experience made you feel. Was that the time? Was it at that point where you said, but I can't, or here's what I need, or here's my boundary and what would cause me to leave? Was that the same conversation, or was that a separate conversation down the road, or what did that look like?
I think that was the line in the sand that allowed other conversations to happen. Like, hey, this sucks. I'm showing up. We're not doing this anymore. I'm choosing this if you choose to do this. And then it's just like a new iteration of conversations all the time, because we're always learning something, right? You know, growth versus fixed mindset. It's like we both have growth mindsets, and it's like when I said that, that allowed her to see some of her behavior, and then I just didn't stop at that. It's like, okay, now you go fix yourself. It's like I continue to read books, do coaching, listen to podcasts, all this growth mindset stuff. And so instead of us being, oh, well, this is how it has to be, or this is how it has to be, you know, kind of one-sided, we started creating a shared vision. That's what we talk about often in coaching and in the Power Couple Planner, is what is the shared vision for your marriage? Like, we know where we've been and all the stuff we've gone through. We don't want to repeat that. We want to repeat certain things, you know, the good times and stuff like that. But what is the shared vision that we both can work on? I'm responsible for this, you're responsible for that. And this is how we can be intentional around these things. But like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I think it took us really seeing our disunity to finally begin creating unity. And it was a course of months that these conversations happened. It was like one bad conversation, then him saying, I will divorce you, then him saying, I can't believe you punched me in the face. It was like, we spent the time, we did our due diligence talking about all of these things and trying to be really complex and careful about it, because again, we had a vision in mind. But I think too often, and hear me say this, women and men, if this is you, don't take it wrong, but like too often, women think that they are right in marriage and that it's not something that they need to like co-do. They just go, nope, my feelings trump yours. I'm a woman. I'm better at it. You're dumb. And so they create a foundation where the man has like no say in how stuff changes and grows and works. And I think that that is a terrible place to be. But as you can see from our story, it's a very hard place to get out of and to make a new pattern in, you know?
And I think for guys and women, listen, but primarily guys, it's like, okay, so what's the takeaway? Where's the value add or whatever here? It's like our relationship changed, our individual lives changed when we decided to stop looking at the other person, or if you're not married, when you stop looking at what your outer circumstances and you begin to go, oh, wait a minute, my life right now is the sum of all the decisions I've made and I haven't made. Right? How I've reacted or responded, either way, hopefully we are responding and not reacting more. And the moment that happened, I'll go back to it, is when things started to change. Now, it ended up that we stayed together, right? It could have ended up that we both decided like, hey, well, this actually isn't working out, right? Luckily, that wasn't the case. So neither one is like better than the other ones. But the real, I think, crux of this is, hey, I need to stay the course. I need to do what I need to do, regardless of what she does or doesn't do, to create the life that I said I wanted, that I would give her and the kids or whatnot, and stick to that. What Ed Milet talks about, you know, we build self-confidence by keeping the promises we make to ourselves. I promised myself that I would pray. I didn't promise her, hey, Melanie, I'm going to pray 6 times a day so you'll love me again. You know, please love me. No, I was like, okay, Seth, everything you've done up until this point, all the book knowledge of licensed marriage and family therapy, all the stuff you've listened to, all the things you've read, everything has not worked. So again, back to the being Christian part, I was like, okay, God, I can't do this. I need you. The only thing I knew to do was to pray. And I also thought, okay, if she is tripping balls about like me praying, then she is clearly wrong.
Something's wrong with me.
Right. So,
but we need to define tripping balls, whatever that means. I think we need to for all of us who don't quite know.
If she's having a hard time with me praying,
I like tripping balls better. That's way better.
Go ahead. That was really
Proceed.
good.
Right. So she's tripping balls about me praying. I know at least that thing is right. So that was my North Star, my like, okay, that I can't mess with that, at least in my belief system. That is correct, right? That is, and if she is saying that is wrong, then I know without a shadow of a doubt that she has the problem, right? Okay, well, okay, you're messed up, B, you know, I'm not going to listen to it. No, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to let you deal with that. But I promised myself that I would do that. And then I built self-confidence every time she called and said, or I called her and she said, thank you, you know, that was great. Or she says, F you, and hung up. I'm like, hey,
doesn't matter.
I did it. So I am differentiated from the outcome around it, which was super helpful too.
I've got a friend, his name's Keith Yackey. He's been on the podcast and we've talked quite a bit about this actually. And he talks about the energy of doing things and why you're doing things. So for example, we'll use prayer. if you're praying for yourself, that's a different energy than praying with like one eye open, hoping Melanie walks by at just the right moment, seeing you pray.
Right.
Like you're in both scenarios, you're doing the same thing, right? And it could be the same as a gift. Like maybe you get her a gift that you know she really likes. Well, why are you doing it? So you can get laid. That's different energy than because I care about you and I know this would add value to your life. And ironically, doing it for the right reason is what gets you laid. It's not that you want to get laid and you're doing it for that reason. So it's the energy behind it. You're not doing it for her. You're doing it for you. The natural result is that she responds to that.
And and that circles back around to kind of what you were asking earlier, where it's like, well, why would I accept him praying for me every day and not feel like it was like a manipulation? It's that energy. He was not praying with one eye open. He was literally like, Melanie is going to treat me like garbage and I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to show up. And that was the sort of the piece that shifted my energy, was seeing that like authentic version of him in it. And I want to say something that might be helpful for people to, like, an image that keeps coming into my mind as we're talking, is that Seth and I stated outrightly, like when we were like in the very, very early stages of going through all of this, that we were willing to fight. Now, that didn't mean that I always showed up with a good attitude, obviously, but I said, I'm willing to fight for this. I don't want to get a divorce. Now, the next day I would have said things like, you're a piece of shit. I do want to get divorced, but I had stated, I actually don't want to get divorced. This is my goal. And so in a way, I think of like Lord of the Rings, like Frodo vibes, like they're out looking at, what's that mountain? Mordor. And they're like, I got to go climb up that thing. Like, I know I have to do that. And at some real level, Seth and I knew, when we like to get on the other side of where we are right now, it takes that big of a challenge, and we're both up for it. Now, I had a pissy attitude most of the way. He did not, and I followed him. But that's the sort of the energy I think of as I approach this and think of how to reshare it in a more practical sense. It's like, you have to decide, I'm willing to climb up and like be attacked by some weird goblins and stuff and like still fight. I'm willing to do that. Even if I can.
I think there's a level of sustainability in that behavior too, right? Because I know for me, when I was going through this with my ex, like there was a lot of new behavior that I wanted to incorporate in my life, mainly staying sober. If I was doing that purely for a desired response from her and I wasn't getting that response, that behavior would have been short-lived.
Right.
But if
we see
I'm
that all
doing
the
it
time
for the right reason, which is my own internal gain and growth, and if she's on board with that, great, I can sustain that indefinitely, because the motive behind it is for the right reason, not for the response of some external circumstance beyond my control.
And I know that you see this, I see this all the time. So many guys, we'll just speak to the guys here, they do it for the wrong reasons, and then they feel deserving because, hey, I'm showing up, not because I want to show up. Like if I was just a bachelor doing nothing, I don't know, who cares? I wouldn't do that thing anyway. Hey, I'm showing up. Shouldn't I get a pat on the back or something? And then when they don't get that pat on the back, that acknowledgement, so many people go, well, see, who cares? Didn't work anyway. And then they go back to whatever. And like, how backwards is that? Like, in fact, that's what we were doing before we kind of woke up, right? And that's like playing the victim, in that benefits no one ever. Any type of victim mentality benefits no one, you mostly, the person that's doing it. So it's like all kinds of guys, and I see this all the time, like with coaching or different clients that I see, couples come in, they start making some changes. We talk about things that they have identified that they want to change. They do it just like drinking. It's like, okay, I've been sober for 2 weeks and she's still a bitch, or I've been sober for a month and I don't have 10,000 in savings yet. Well, okay, guess that was the wrong choice. No, are you kidding me? Like, anything worth doing takes discipline, takes consistency, and you have to separate yourself from it, because what is actually worth it? It's like, okay, we're both doing 75 hard right now. It's like my 5th time, but we're on day, I think 36 right now. So who are we doing it for? Am I doing it like, hey, Melanie, check out this 6-pack, or
look at my selfie.
Don't you? Yeah. Don't you like?
Don't
me
you
more?
notice me? Yeah, notice me.
Notice me, see me.
Right. Oh, what? You're not. You don't like it? Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go drink beer and like eat sugar or whatever. That would be for the complete incorrect, wrong reasons. And I want guys to think about, okay, what are we doing? If we're doing anything in our lives for that reason, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Mhm.
And mainly in your relationships, if like you have to put your own line in the sand, what kind of man, husband, father, dad, business owner, whatever human do I want to be
Mhm.
for me, not for Melanie, not for all this stuff. Now people benefit from it. Like I benefit because Melanie's doing 75 hard right now. It's great. We're fit. We'll live longer. It's fun, right? Our kids are benefiting from it because they see it and we're being that example for them. Now, are we doing it for those reasons? No. Those are just byproducts of doing something good and kicking ass in our own lives. But like, how good does it feel? Like, yeah, day 76, nailed it.
Mhm.
Feels amazing, right? You can't buy that.
Mm.
The only way that you can do it is do it yourself. Like with our marriage, it's like, yeah, we worked and sweated and cried and bled and all this stuff. And now we have that. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean we're up here now, no problems. No, we've like 2022 was terrible for us, right? Well, like counseling.
Well, and again, we're leveling up. And this is the thing I want to say. It's like this stuff takes work. It's hard. You need a backbone. You need to fight for it. And you need to know if you want to fight for it. And there were times, in all honesty, that I told Seth, then this was recently, like in the last few years, like, hey, if you don't change, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I will stay on this course of my own personal growth and do what's right here. But that was a sign that he needed healing. And again, it's this like tearing up, and it's almost like a ladder. Like when I tear up, Seth has to then tear up. And when he tears up, I have to tear up. That's how it works. And so often what happens in couples is that one person tears up and the other person's like, why'd you leave? Why'd you leave me down here? And the person who teared up is like, can you join me? And they're like, no, you're supposed to stay down here. I met you when we were down here. We're supposed to stay down here. And that's where it's like backbone, people like work hard for this stuff. There is nothing more important in life than like showing up for yourself, showing up for your marriage and your kids, whatever that looks like. But if your partner is saying, nope, staying down here, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. I want to stay down here. I'm not learning. I'm not growing. I'm not like, you don't want that life forever. I didn't want that life forever. And so again, Seth and I we've had hundreds and hundreds of these conversations. We have over 500 episodes of us talking to each other about how we want to level up. So this work is not easy, but it's the best work I've ever done for myself and our kids and all of that. So it's a long
But I also think, yeah, no, it's good. I also think with regards to that leveling up, and I really like that. That's important because it's better for everybody when you guys elevate yourselves. But one thing look, I'm trying to say this the best way that I can. I'll say it this way. There a lot of women and men that I talk with and have conversations with, I run across scenarios where a woman is thinking they're asking a man for something and they're actually not. Like if you listen to the verbiage, you listen to what they're saying, you listen to how they're communicating, I believe that they think they're telling their man what they want, but they're not actually effectively communicating that with their husbands. Agree or disagree?
Agree 100%. And it drives me up the wall. And this is something that we talk about with coaching clients. Listen, you're going to love this. So not only did we make the Power Couple Planner, I made the Power Couple Planner. It's a planner for couples to have success, but I also made for ourselves the Power List that hangs on our refrigerator because of that exact thing. So on here, I have it. It says, how do I feel seen, secure, safe, heard, loved, respected? He gets to fill out one side. I get to fill out one side. Because guess what? Women will say things like this. I wish you noticed me. What the hell does that mean?
Right.
Of course your spouse notices you. Do they have to say it? Like, do they have to say it in a song? What do you mean?
Well, he should just know. He should just know.
That's the most offensive thing I think women say all the time. Well, if you knew, you would. Whatever. No, we're not playing mind games anymore.
If you truly love me, then
oh yeah, that's a good one.
You would have ESP.
Right.
You'd be a psychic. If you truly love me, you would know this by now.
Yeah, there's a million examples of that. And it's like, this is where, again, I'm going to say it very gendered. Women often do this. He should know. And I wish he noticed me. So we had a client recently say something like, I wish that he would just spend more time with me. What the hell does that mean? We spend hours and hours together a day because we work from home. Is that time? That might count for him. But do you mean time at the park? Do you mean time in bed? Do you mean time talking on the couch? What do you mean? And if you can't tell me what you mean, you can't ask for it. You cannot ask these like just fog questions or statements. Well, I wish you loved me. What does that mean? Like it's not acceptable.
That would be like saying, hey, Melanie, Or how about this? Like Ryan, we're hanging out in Hawaii and stuff. Hey, Ryan, I'm hungry.
Right.
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
You
cool.
well, I've been here before. We could go get this, or this, or this. But it's me like expecting that you should know.
Or, I mean,
exactly what I want.
yeah.
Oh, he wants a steak medium rare with a baked potato loaded on the side. Oh, okay.
Right. Another thing, like he doesn't.
Or another scenario
ahead.
with that is you say, I'm hungry. I'm like, cool, let me go get you a burger. I get you a burger. And you're like, well, I didn't want a hamburger.
Yep.
Right.
You are setting
Why
your
don't you
spouse
care
up
about me? It's like, well,
right.
you said you're hungry. I gave you a burger. Now you're not hungry anymore. Well, I didn't want that. I wanted pizza today.
Yeah.
Clarity is kindness. And if you can't be clear, that means you don't know. And when wives will say, well, I wish he just respected me, you make me a list of what respecting you means and see if he'll do those. That's a whole different ballgame. And most women don't even know themselves well enough to do that. Men are guilty of this too. But yeah, there's a lot of clarity.
Can I just add one disclaimer or a little clarifier on that? You say you make me a list, and if he's not willing to do that, then you don't know. I don't think you're saying this, but I think that could be interpreted as if he's just not willing to do it on his own. I think that meal list ought to be communicated. And I know you believe that. I just want to make sure people know.
Yes.
Like if you make this list, it's not a list in your head like, oh, he did it. Good. No, like actually show him the damn list so he can do it.
Yeah. I'm going to read you some of the ones that are on our list because they're funny. Like that's part of what makes it funny. But like, so for my side, for Seth to make me feel seen, it's the very first one on the list. You're going to love this one. It's to cook batches of meat and have them in the fridge. You heard what I just said.
Easy day, like that.
And so
keep
he would have never.
Keep her. No wonder you fought for her.
Right.
He would have never thought about that. That would have never crossed his mind that my wife loves it when there's like turkey in the fridge. Why would he ever think that? But
what is the meaning below the meaning? Like the thing below the thing. We talk about this all the time in coaching. So okay, when Melanie feels seen, if I take the initiative to cook batches of meat. So this can mean like brown turkey or some deer steak or whatever, just in the fridge, ready to go, right? So if I can pay attention to that, like, she gets kind of like hangry sometimes, so, and just like she's always working. So if it's easy, grab it and go, it's protein, it's sustainable. She feels, oh, this guy is taking care of one of my basic needs. And that feels loving. Right. I mean, even if you have like friend relationships, oh, this dude knows that I like,
decaf latte,
a Wingstop gift card for my birthday.
This is a men's show, Melanie. This is a men's show.
Right.
None of that Seattle coffee lingo.
I like how you said Wingstop. I was like, what is that?
Like, a chicken wing gift card for my birthday.
There you go.
Bro knows me, right? So it's simple stuff like that. So the thing below the thing, it's not just like, oh, here's the meat you wanted. It's not that. It's much more.
I'm going to say some of Seth's too, because again, this is where I think it's really exciting for couples to have this clarity. So he feels seen when I acknowledge like the work he's done, like actively acknowledge it. Don't just see it in my head, but say, thank you for doing that. I see that our kid is learning how to drive. Thank you for taking him to drive around the neighborhood. Thank you. Another one is like, on here, I actually didn't see this until like 2 days ago. He feels,
didn't read it? What's
no,
up?
I did. I like glossed over it and didn't really notice it, but it said, when I am attuned and present and I'm not multitasking. I love to multitask. He doesn't like how it feels. So it's literally written. This thing hangs on our fridge so that we have tactical, strategic ways that we can show and express our love and care for one another every single day. And it's a reminder. It's like a cheat sheet. But again, if you don't know these things about yourself, it takes some real thought to be like, what makes me feel loved by my husband? I know, cook turkey. Like that actually takes thought to figure
I was going to say,
out.
most of us would never, like even listening to this, if you say, hey, what could your wife do to make you feel more loved right now? I think most of us would have a really hard time answering that question. I don't know. Maybe if she cooked dinner for me or had sex with me more often. I mean, those are that's low hanging fruit, but yeah, I think a lot of guys would have a hard time answering that question. So that's why it's good that you're doing these exercises.
So Melanie created this power list and she filled hers out like, 1 second after she printed the form. And it took me like 3 weeks. Like I had to sit with it and like think about it. Like, oh, wait a minute, looking back on all of our relationship, when do I feel seen, heard, loved, respected? Like, what are the actual things?
Why do you think that was hard for you? Like what was so challenging about that for you?
Because I think that guys don't like that stuff in general. We just want to get shit done. And this is coming from a therapist. Like Like I advocate for therapy. Sure. Go be in therapy if you need to, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And it took me like, we're like, okay, provide, go make money, do all this stuff. And it's easy to be in our heads, guys, especially for me. It's like, yep, I can be in my head all day. It's harder to be in my heart, you know? And so I had to really kind of like get quiet, you know, chill out, think about this stuff and be reflective of what's really important to me, you know. Oh, we'll just make money and, you know, be a good dad. Well, no, like what's really, really important to me. Like I feel respected when she acknowledges when I come home or something, and not like you know, balloons and confetti cannons or anything like that. It's like, hey babe, how was your day? You know, with a hug, you know. You talk about love language, like, okay, what are your love languages? Mine's physical touch and like words of affirmation. You know, even that took me a minute to figure out. I'm like, oh, what do I really care about? And I think guys, it's much more, I say this to guys all the time. I would rather walk barefoot in a blizzard carrying like 500 pounds, you know, on glass than like talk about feelings and stuff with my wife, right? But guys, take this to heart. Your wife wants to know that part of you almost more than anything else, right? They want to know, because when they know like deep stuff like that, what do they feel? They feel safe, they feel secure, and they feel like, okay, I can be with this dude, right? So guys, if you're having a hard time with that, like, oh, I don't want to talk about that touchy-feely bullshit. Okay, you don't have to with like other dudes and this and that and all this stuff, but with the person that you're closest with, your girlfriend or your wife, you owe her that. And I'm not saying like, oh, tit for tat kind of thing, but like, that's one of the most important things for her. Like, think about like the most important thing for you as a dude, as a guy. What if your wife was like, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid.
Right.
You'd be like,
right.
Well, that doesn't feel nice.
And listen,
Well,
women
plus
do that
she
to men
wants-
all the time.
I was just
Keep
gonna
on,
say,
sorry.
but no, it's good. Like that's like she wants to give that to you, and for women are listening, he wants to give that to you.
Right.
I think the words of affirmation. I tend to be the same as you. Words of affirmation, physical touch, very high for me as well. I have a hard time admitting physical touch. I don't have a challenge admitting that I like physical touch. Like that's not an issue. Most guys, I imagine, do.
Right.
But words of affirmation was a hard one for me to admit.
Yeah.
Because I like it's very closely linked with validation, right? And we're taught constantly like, oh, you don't do things for validation. You don't do things to seek validation. You should just do them. We talked about it in this conversation. You do it just because it's the right thing to do. But words of affirmation are so closely related to validation that they get intertwined. And it's like, wait, I'm not supposed to thrive on words of affirmation. I'm a man. I'm supposed to just do the work regardless if I get noticed or recognized or not.
Right.
I want to speak directly to that. We've been tapping each other behind the scenes, like, it's my turn, it's my turn.
I know. I'm wondering how you guys, I'm like, have they just done, you did 500 episodes, or you guys are like punching each other under the table where we
tap sometimes, we have a pretty good flow. It's hard in live settings when people can see it. You can't quite do it there. But one thing I want to use this, because you just used a word. You said, I'm not supposed to want words of affirmation. That stood out to me. So I'm going to use this example. Correct me if I'm using the wrong names. I'm thinking of the movie 300, and isn't it King Leonidas? Is that the main guy? What's his wife's name? Something Leonidas.
Queen Leonidas.
We call her Queen Leonidas.
Yeah, Queen
Leonidas.
Sure.
It makes me think of them. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, of course.
So I only really remember, I don't remember like the details of it, but I think of how she talks about him. That is what men want. She talks about, what does she call him? My king? Doesn't she call him that? So there is something biologically wired in us, in men specifically, to want to be seen as a king. And if you're a queen, you don't mind it, because your king's going to protect you. Your king's going to help pay for your bills and help you get your nails done and help you feed your kids. And if you're a queen, you're okay with that. And you are okay. And now part of me is me saying this to myself, because I grew up in a home. I love my parents, but my mother tears my dad apart. He can do nothing right. So I don't have a model of this being my king and knowing how to talk to him as a king. But when I hear you talk about it, it helps me see it in Seth. And it helps me go, oh shit, I am not doing right. I am not showing it up, but like showing up enough for that part of him. Because if I show up for that, he'll show up for me. And it's this beautiful reciprocal circle that I think we're actually wired to be.
It's like a feedback loop. Like Ryan, what you were saying, we're not supposed to want affirmation or anything like that, but guys like you, like myself, and like your listeners, we want to do right. Like they're listening to this show right now because they want to improve, they want to level up, they want to do better than where they were or where they currently are, right? We need feedback on that. Like there's a feedback loop. So, okay, I'm doing right for all the right reasons. Not to hear Melanie say, hey, good job, I'm thankful for you. Okay, yes, that's amazing to hear, but we need that feedback. Just like a dude at a job or something, they need the boss to be like, hey man, good job on that, you nailed it. Right? Is that what we're looking for? Is that why we're at work trying to get a paycheck? No, but it's an indicator of we're going the right way. It's like a GPS. You know, it's like, okay, walking around. We need that feedback. Hey, you've been walking the wrong way for 2 miles, turn around. Okay, that's feedback that we need. Or you're 100 yards from your, meetup point. Okay, keep on going, right? So the words of affirmation, I don't want to put it like, oh, we shouldn't need this. It's like, it's vital. Like, especially for guys and women too, who are wanting to do the right thing. We can't do it alone. Otherwise we would have done it by now. So me needing words of affirmation, me wanting words of affirmation, I don't need it, right? It's well, maybe I do need it.
It's okay to want it.
It's okay to want it for sure. Hey, Seth, good job. Hey, you're doing right on this. Thanks. And not because I'm looking over my shoulder saying, hey, am I doing right, honey? Please, tell me if I'm doing right because I don't know shit on my own. No, that's weak, right? But it's like, oh, you got it. You're doing right. Keep on going. And even with like, dude friends, like, hey man, good job. Or like, yeah, keep on coming this way. You nailed it on that thing. Or like, thanks for doing that. That feedback encourages us to do more of the right thing. And men are like dogs, not in the right way, but like a good dog that you can throw. Right, I mean, not in the wrong way. Like,
like the right way.
Like what?
Not in the wrong way. But guys are like dogs. Like we will run and play fetch all day. Just like we have 2 dogs. He'll run all day till he's, just dead. Men, when we are getting the feedback in that way, we're like, yep. Oh, worked 18 hours. You want me to do this other thing when I come home? Sure. Like all it's good. Like you're appreciative. You're showing gratitude, all this stuff. If I know that I'm doing right, sometimes that is all I need to continue to do right. Now, again, it's not the sole reason. Going back to what we talked about before, it's like, oh, well, I did it for 2 weeks and nothing. Forget it. That's the wrong.
I want to say one thing too to this as well. We have sons, and some of them did Taekwondo, and I was watching our kids, and our daughter does Taekwondo as well, and watching the young men in that martial arts studio want to make their Master Nini, it's a female who runs the thing, wanting to make her proud. And that shifted how I felt about Seth needing words of affirmation and to be seen, is watching these kids that are 7 and 10 and 15 just want to make this woman proud. And if you're a woman struggling with this idea with your husband, put it in that context of, what if this was my child? What if this was a boy that I love? Now, I'm not saying that men are boys, so please don't hear that. But that need for like wanting to feel like you're doing something amazing never goes away. So let's not pretend it goes away because we're adults, right? I think that's such it's heartbreaking, and I'm guilty of it.
Well, guys, I've really appreciated the conversation. We've got through a lot here, and I know there's always so much more we can talk about, but I want to give everybody the opportunity to learn more about what you guys are doing in your podcast. And then also the couple of resources that you shared a minute ago. If you want to talk about those, let people know where to connect with you and where to pick up more resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, we do high performance marriage coaching, and that is weekly meetings with me and Melanie. We can do one-on-one stuff. It's for 90 days. We turn your marriage around. As long as people are willing to get feedback and have a growth mindset, we can help you change your marriage. But it's a commitment. It's a 90-day commitment. So high performance marriage coaching, and then also the Power Couple Planner, if you want to show it here.
You can get all of these things at anatomyofus.com. So our website is just anatomyofus.com. You'll see tabs for the Power Couple Planner. We'll get the power list out there so people can download that for free. And the Power Couple Planner is just my way of systematizing marriage success, right? It's literally like people go, oh, we need to do more date nights. Okay, well, freaking do it. Like, don't talk about it, do it. And so there's date ideas, there's all those things.
It's like the battle planner that you have, which I have a couple of copies that have been filled out long ago. It's like that, but for marriage.
Yeah.
Right? It's got conversation starters, date night ideas.
Mhm.
You plan stuff out, like,
It's a whole year.
It's a whole year planning.
So just go to Anatomy of Us, and that's our podcast as well. Like we said, we have over 500 episodes just talking through all of this stuff, and you can see we're pretty raw and real, and we answer listener questions, and we're here for all of the relationship things.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
what we do. It's our mission. So.
Yeah.
Good, you guys. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate our friendship. I mean, just getting to know you guys over the past several years has been awesome. Seth, you and I have been hunting together. We're going to make that happen again next year, hopefully. But yeah, I appreciate you. And also I appreciate your example. It's really good to see people who aren't perfect, but that are willing to admit where they struggle, and then to see how they work through those struggles to create something really powerful. So you're a good example to us, and I appreciate that from both of you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's we're just being real, just like everybody else. And this the growth mindset over the fixed mindset makes all the difference. So I appreciate it. I can't wait to go do Hawaii again. This time
we'll make it happen
for sure.
It's hard. It's not easy. It is not easy. So it's taken me a lot of tries as well. We'll get it done. Thanks, you guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.